It's a beautiful, crystal clear day in Southern California. We're at California Speedway for the final race of the Card FedEx Championship Series, the 500. This race will determine the champion. Dario Franchetti will win the championship if he finishes third or better, regardless of where Juan Montoya finishes. For Montoya, he must remain at least sixth and score the bonus point for leading the most laps, even to be alive in this championship battle.
The 1999 kart finale at Fontana had an epic championship battle, with Dario Franchetti coming into the race only 9 points ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya. These two duking it out all season long, exchanging wins back and forth, and how the points ended up at the conclusion of the 500-mile race. It's a pretty remarkable story, but unfortunately is completely overshadowed by tragedy. Canadian driver Greg Moore, who was a superstar in the making for the Forsyth racing team, and the youngest winner of the kart era, tragically would lose his life. Before the race even started, Greg had a very rough weekend. He was riding his scooter in the paddock getting ready for practice when a lady in a pickup truck turned in front of him and hit him, knocking him off his scooter and breaking his hand. Due to this, Greg actually missed qualifying and had to start dead last in the race. There was even doubts that Greg was even going to be able to race, as the team prepared the car to have Roberto Moreno step in if need be, and they also worked on a custom cast for Greg's hand so he can compete in the race if he so chooses to. And being the fiery competitor that Greg Moore was, of course he started the race. Scott Pruitt got the pole position in his final kart race before moving to NASCAR the following year, and he would lead the field to the green flag.
Scott Pruitt, Max Pappas, and then the Target Chip Ganassi team in formation. Remember, too, they have decided to be a little more lax with how they start the field. The drivers requested it. They say if a guy screws it up and misses a shift, that's his problem. And here we go. We're ready. The final 500 miles of the season. Look at the move to the inside. Look at Pappas, Target Chip Ganassi both come up into the second position, and they start to battle. Michael Andretti comes around. Michael looking for racing room to the inside. Pappas takes the lead. Scott Pruitt fades badly onto the backstretch. 4 wide now, heading for turn 3. Everybody else safely through the first and second turn. Pappas comes around off of turn 4 on the high bank. Nice wide track. Plenty of racing room, and Pappas leads them across the line for lap number 1. Michael Andretti now challenges for the lead. Michael takes the lead going into the first turn.
A pretty wild start, and a hell of a start from Michael Andretti, who started in the 6th position. He managed to rocket to the front before they made it back to turn 1 on the second lap. The first incident of the day would come just 3 laps in, where Richie Hearn would lose control and smash into the inside wall coming off of turn number 2. Richie Hearn was okay after this accident and was able to get out and walk away under his own power completely unhurt. This area of the track though, and the angle of those walls there, would definitely prove to be a problem later in the race.
Here's the replay, Parker.
Coming off the second corner, you can see the back end step out. Richie looks like he stands on the throttle to try to get it to rotate, but he doesn't have enough racetrack, and makes heavy contact with the retaining wall. Huge, huge impact.
The Richie Hearn incident would obviously bring out the yellow flag, and when the pace car came out on the track, we nearly had a bizarre incident as Max Pappas came in with a full head of steam and wasn't expecting Michael Andretti to slow up as much or the pace car to come onto the track. Thankfully, there was no issues and everyone was able to continue on. Obviously, with it being so early in the race, the leaders would stay out and Michael Andretti would lead the field back to green. But unfortunately, this is when tragedy would strike.
He picked up the throttle, and Montoya now makes a move on Pappas. Montoya working for that championship. Wants to get at the front of the field. Wants to get away from Franchetti. Montoya to second. Pappas now with Vassar working on him. Onto the backstretch.
And remember, Fontana is all about the draft with the Hanford device. It's like coming up behind a semi at 90 miles an hour and just being pulled right into the back of it. Oh!
Oh, an enormous crash. Oh my God. A terrible crash. Yellow comes out again.
And unfortunately with that, we would lose one of the greatest Canadian IndyCar talents. And I'm not even just going to say Canadian, I'm going to say a phenomenal talent in general. And I truly believe that, and I truly believe that Greg Moore would have been a huge IndyCar star, especially with his move to Penske. He already signed the contract. The very next season he was moving to Team Penske, and who knows what that combination together could have achieved in the sport. It was pretty clear that this part of the racetrack was flawed in its design, not taking into account for an accident like this. The car essentially launched off the access road and with the angled wall went headfirst into it. And safety has definitely come a long way since then. And with the facility how it is today and the safety of today's IndyCar as well with the aero screen, this probably still would have been a huge hit to the inside wall, but the tragedy of this moment would have been avoided and we would still have Greg Moore here with us today. Due to the uncertainty of Greg Moore's health at the time, a replay was not shown by the broadcast, and even if there was, I probably wouldn't put it in the video anyways. If you really want to see it, you can find it, or you can even go back to the live moment and watch it again. But we're going to continue on with the video because this race had a great championship battle that went right down to the last lap of the race. Michael Andretti led the field back to green.
So more added frustration to that team. Look back at the battle for third, Pappas and Vassar, as here comes Montoya. Montoya slingshots past Michael Andretti, and Montoya takes the lead.
What a great restart by Montoya. Most people would think he had fallen too far back. He planned the draft perfectly. You can see with the draft, Michael can get him right back going into turn 3.
Oh, shades of the early laps of the Michigan 500. Michael Andretti comes back around Montoya, retakes the lead. Since Montoya passed on the previous lap after the line, Montoya won't get scored with that lap. It'll be Michael in the official scorebook.
The race wouldn't stay under the green flag for very long as there was another incident as Alex Barron made heavy contact with the outside wall, bringing out the yellow flag once again. Despite the heavy damage to the car, Alex Barron was okay, and he would jump out of the car pretty much as soon as it came to a complete stop under his own power.
Looks to be okay. Right side damage took the wing off of that car. He was running 23rd at the time, so for the third time on the 28th lap, yellow flag comes out.
We can see him as he just comes across, starts to get a little tank slapper, puts in a little bit too much correction, gets up in the gray. He was so close to having that gathered up, but once he got out of the racing line and up into the marbles, he lost control of the situation. Fortunately, he hit it at a good angle, rode it down along the wall, and then back down to the inside.
Under this yellow, the leaders would finally hit pit road for the first time in the race. Montoya would win the race off pit road, but he would actually be in third place as both Dale Coyne cars stayed on the racetrack. This put Dennis Vitolo in second and Michel Jourdain Jr. leading the field. They would lead the field back to the green flag.
Pace picks up, and here we go. We're racing again at California Speedway. This is lap 34. Michel Jourdain Jr. gets a good jump on the field. Here comes Montoya and Tracy. Tracy around Montoya. Michael rolling now on the back of Juan Montoya. Tracy pulls away. Michael's going to dart to the inside. The grab probably isn't going to work here. He goes for a gear.
We saw that earlier in the year in Michigan. Oh, and now look at him pick up the pace coming through and off the corner. And that's why he went down a gear. He wanted to make sure that that Cosworth was in its maximum peak power position, and that's exactly what he did. But now look at Montoya fight back. On the steering wheel, if they don't go down a gear, one of the other options they have is an overtake button, which puts the power to maximum rich, maximum advance on the engine. The Cosworths have a lot of time in what they call the candy button position, and I think these two drivers right now are utilizing that maximum power capability.
Michael Andretti and Juan Montoya had some great hard racing on the restart, as Montoya really had to keep his car in the top 3 and as many positions possible between him and Dario Franchetti if he wanted to win the championship. Despite restarting in the 5th position, it didn't take Michael Andretti very long to get back to the front and to the lead of the race. It was pretty clear in the early stages that he had the strongest car of the race up until this point. On lap 42 of the race, we'd get the first official update on Greg Moore's status.
Greg has severe head and internal injuries. He's being sent to Loma Linda Hospital for further resuscitative efforts. Dr. Jeff Grange, who's the chief emergency doctor here in this area, is with him in the helicopter and is going to report back to me soon.
This is a life-threatening situation?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
That interview really sums up the severity of the situation, and it almost makes you feel sick to your stomach thinking about it. I mean, I was only 9 years old when this happened, and it really made me feel pretty messed up, because at this point in my life, I didn't really know what loss was, and to have someone that you look up to like Greg Moore in this situation was pretty devastating. With 180 laps to go and Michael Andretti pretty much running away with this thing, disaster would strike on his second pit stop of the day. Michael would make his way down pit road for a green flag pit stop, and unfortunately during the pit stop, an oil fire would break out, and that would put an end to his day, and the most dominant car so far is now out of contention, really opening it up to make it anyone's race. And quite frankly, I think this is a very important moment of the race regarding the championship picture by the end of it. And not just because of Andretti's problems here. Juan Montoya made a perfect routine green flag pit stop without any issues, while Franchetti on pit road would have some trouble on his pit stop, and this would actually end up putting him down a lap, really putting the ball in Montoya's court to take this championship, as his pit crew had major issues trying to get the right rear wheel off of the car and changed. When the green flag stop cycled through, Max Papis would be in the lead of the race. The next yellow flag of the race would come out when Dennis Vitolo was coming down pit road with a mechanical issue and lost control and spun around backwards. His car was on fire even, but despite all this, he would actually finish the race. He would not retire here, although he was several laps off the pace. At this stage in the race, I'll let the great Paul Page give you an update on the championship race.
Dario Franchetti is in real trouble on the points right now because of a lengthy pit stop, problem with the tire, around back in the pits again. He has fallen 2 laps behind the race. If the points as they sit at this moment would give this man, Juan Montoya, the win in the championship battle, but this race is far from over. There's still 162 laps remain.
Max Papis would continue to lead and would bring the field back to the green flag.
25 laps to stay in the regular pit stop sequence as we see green being waved.
And you have to wonder, Paul, is push to Montoya neutral to everyone else?
Back racing once again. Papis brings them across the line. Tony Kanaan comes up to close. He is not in a battle for the lead. The top 3 are Papis, Tracy, Montoya. Tony Kanaan is 10th. He's just trying to get his lap back.
The next yellow flag of the race would come out when Elio Castroneves would lose an engine of his Hogan Racing entry. This would actually be Hogan Racing's last race, as the team would cease operations at the end of the year, leaving Elio without a ride. With the unfortunate circumstances revolving around Greg Moore's death, this opened up that Penske seat for Elio to take that ride. And we all know the history with Elio and Team Penske. Now here's something you really don't see every day. Race leader Max Papis, as he was getting down onto pit road, get sideways and actually go into the grass and lose a few positions before he even got into his pit stall.
And they're also downshifting. We'll have a look here and see if we can see. Oh, you know what that is? It's just the transition from the banking down onto the apron. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it's hard to see from the camera angle, but it's very abrupt. And as a matter of fact, the drivers have been warned by the officials again and again about that transition because the car can spin easily.
Because of this, Papis would restart the race in 7th position. Paul Tracy would win the race off pit road and restart the race from the lead. Montoya would be in the 3rd spot behind his teammate Jimmy Vasser.
Was the most important thing, and that he was driving for the championship, not the win. But right now it looks like he's driving for the win and the championship. Montoya to the inside into 3. Gets past Tracy.
I think reining in Montoya would be a full-time job. And here he is. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with Jimmy Vasser's car. I think he's just hanging back there.
Juan Montoya would easily get past his teammate Jimmy Vasser and wasted no time taking the lead from Paul Tracy, trying to put a firm grip on that championship. Montoya would be out front for a total of 10 laps before being run down by Christian Fittipaldi and overtaken for the lead with 120 laps to go. The next yellow flag of the race would come out on lap 153 for debris in turn number 2, and it was when we returned from this commercial break that we would get the official word of Greg Moore's passing.
Gentlemen from the staff here and Dr. Steve Olvey have come out in an announcement for us. Dr. Olvey?
Gary, I regret to announce that driver Greg Moore has been pronounced dead at Loma Linda Hospital. He died of massive head and internal injuries. He was pronounced dead at 21 minutes after 1 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Well, that certainly was our concern. From Maple Ridge, Canada, Greg Moore, 24 years old, a promising young rookie when he came to the series, the 95 Lights champion. His whole future ahead of him. Won at Homestead this year, was going to move over to drive to Roger Penske's team next year. Our condolences to his friends and family.
Just absolutely heartbreaking, and the last thing that you want to hear during a race. The flags were immediately put to half-mast in respect for Greg's passing, and Wally Dallenbach Sr., who was running the show at the time, immediately said that there would be no post-race celebrations for the winner of the race or the championship, which is really unfortunate, but absolutely needed to be done. With pretty much everyone knowing at this point about Greg's passing, it was strictly instructed that the drivers would not be made aware of the situation until after the race. And at the conclusion of the race, all drivers would immediately pull onto pit road and then they would be informed. With the decision made to run the race to its conclusion, Juan Montoya was still in the lead of the championship, as Dario Franchitti continued to struggle with right rear hub problems. Christian Fittipaldi would lead the field back to green.
The field back to green, the other cars moved away, giving it as a battle between Max Pappas and Christian right behind the pace cars that came to green. Pappas took advantage of the start, now Montoya tries to do the same. Montoya up high along Christian Fittipaldi. Mauricio Guzman closing as well.
Here and use the button.
That's Bobby Rahal telling him just use 5th gear, use the button, which means go to full power, full revs, use everything you've got. They've got their telemetry working this time. You won't see a repeat, I don't think.
Restart, Maxie, that a boy.
Max Pappas would immediately take the lead on the restart and recover nicely from his earlier pit road mishap. With approaching 50 laps to go, the leaders would hit pit road. But during the green flag pit cycle, Mark Blundell would come to a stop on the apron of the racetrack. However, the caution would not come out right away, as it seemed officials kind of wanted to let the green flag stops kind of cycle through before throwing it. When all was said and done though, Max Pappas would still be in front of Montoya and Christian Fittipaldi.
Green flag start with Pappas as the leader, Montoya second, Fittipaldi third.
Green, green, green.
And then Parker's been working on the numbers, and we got some interesting fuel information to tell you. Montoya takes Pappas on the high side, goes to the lead. Christian closes on Pappas from behind. Pappas still very much in the fight.
Well, and I think Montoya knows he can't make it to the end unless we have another yellow. Franchitti can make it to the end, Paul.
Pappas comes back to the inside. We're going to elaborate that in just a second. Pappas back to the lead of the race.
With 42 laps to go, it became evident that fuel mileage would be an issue going down to the checkered flag if another yellow flag did not come out. With 36 laps to go, Montoya had only a 1-point advantage over Franchitti, as Franchitti was starting to gain positions, although still being a couple laps down. With 14 laps to go, leader Max Pappas would have to hit pit road to make a green flag pit stop, as he was not able to make it on fuel. Since Michael Andretti's mechanical problems, Pappas has been the car of the race. Just 2 laps later, Juan Montoya would hit pit road as well, as he had to make a splash of fuel to make it to the end. This would give the lead to Adrian Fernandez. A huge turning point of the championship picture happened with 6 laps to go. Dario Franchitti, despite being 2 laps down, was in 9th place and had a 3-point advantage over Montoya. It was originally believed that he was able to make it to the end for fuel, but he actually had to hit pit road to top up, thus changing the championship picture once again. Coming down to the white flag, Montoya and Franchitti were tied in points, and Adrian Fernandez was still out front in max fuel saving mode. In the event of a tie, Montoya would get the championship because he had 7 wins on the season, while Dario Franchitti only had 3.
Fernandez on the backside. Is the gamble about to pay off for Fernandez? Off of the final corner, Adrian Fernandez takes the win. The gamble pays off, and it's number 5 in his career for Adrian Fernandez. And here comes Montoya. Unchallenged.
Stay on it.
And there he goes.
You're the champion.
He crosses
You are the champion.
line just behind his rival, Franchetti. Chip said it. Juan Montoya, as a rookie, takes the championship. He owns the PPG Cup for the next year.
Adrian Fernandez manages to fuel safe his way to steal the victory from Max Papis, and Juan Montoya becomes the first rookie since Nigel Mansell in 1993 to win the kart championship. A pretty remarkable feat. It's just very unfortunate of the circumstances of this day and the tragedy of Greg Moore that we never got to see Juan properly celebrate this victory, as it was during the season where Juan Pablo Montoya fully solidified himself as a racing superstar, and it led to a path to Formula One. It was just a sad way to close out the season, and it was a fantastic championship battle that went right down to the last lap of the last race. Unfortunately, this was the second fatality of this season, as Gonzalo Rodriguez, driving for Team Penske, lost his life at Laguna Seca just a few weeks prior to this. Everyone was very emotional and it was very tough. The drivers, the crews, fans, everyone in attendance, and even all the people at home. It's just a sad way to end the year, and to this day, Greg Moore is still missed by many. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a bit of a touchy subject with tragedy and stuff, but it was definitely a very important race in IndyCar history, and one that's just unfortunately on the sadder side of things. Subscribe to my channel for more IndyCar and NASCAR content, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Take care, everybody.